What's going on, everybody? It's Dave here from Profitable Tools, and in today's video, we're talking Elementor Cloud. I'm going to cover a ton of ground here, so let me just lay out how this video proceeds. Then you can use the chapter markers to skip around if there's parts that are less interesting to you. So we're going to start off by talking about what Elementor Cloud is and what it isn't. How does it compare to just a standard WordPress website? Or maybe it is a standard WordPress website. I'm going to answer that in just a second. After that, I actually sign up for an account and I begin building a website, and I kind of talk through some fundamentals of how I think about Elementor, and it might be a little bit different than what you're used to. So even if you're an experienced Elementor builder, definitely stay tuned through that and see if you can pick up on anything new. Hopefully you find something that's helpful to you. At the end, we start to talk more about optimization, compatibility with third-party plugins, and finally I do a GT metrics score so you can see how this thing actually stacks up with a reasonably true-to-life website build. So that's what's in store for you. Let's jump over to the screen and get going. I'm logged into my Elementor user account right now, and you can see from my billing history that I've been a paying subscriber going on 5+ renewals at this point. So I was ecstatic when they reached out to me and asked if I would like to create a sponsored video for their new product, Elementor Cloud. Here is the sales page for Elementor Cloud, and I'll admit when I first heard about this or that it was coming, I was very skeptical. Was Elementor going to start building data centers to run our websites? Were they going to become a software as a service and we'd lose out on all of the benefits of building a website using WordPress? Well, thankfully, they took a very conservative approach here, which I think was the right one, and they didn't do either of those things. In fact, they partnered with one of the best hosting platforms out there, Google Cloud, and they also are giving us a CDN from Cloudflare. So the idea here is that the server is what is running WordPress and your Elementor-based website. And then the CDN has points of presence, or little droplets all over the world, in fact 200 of them, where people can go and access those files very, very quickly when they're cached on the Cloudflare CDN. Okay, that all sounded really good to me, but I still had other questions as a WordPress nerd, like, was I going to be able to use my favorite plugins? And the answer to that is yes, with an asterisk. So we've got some features here added in, like SSL certificates and daily backups that are basically removing the need for certain WordPress plugins that you might be familiar with. To be clear here, you can use most WordPress plugins, things like ACF, Advanced Custom Fields, LearnDash, WooCommerce, WordFence, Yoast. Those are all fair game. You can install just about any WordPress plugin you can think of. The plugins that are incompatible with Elementor Cloud are largely ones that duplicate functionality that Elementor is providing for you. So other page builders, Breezy, Oxygen, and Divi, those are not compatible with Elementor Cloud. I think it's really obvious why that might be. Other ones that might surprise you but have good reason are things like really simple SSL or maybe Updraft Plus. These are duplicating the built-in functionality that Elementor Cloud provides. So we don't need real competition here for SSL. You're making sure that your data is presented in a secure manner over your website. And backups. Elementor really wants to take care of backups for you, and they don't want you using third-party backup tools. A few other categories of plugins that are not allowed are going to be things like migrating your site. Now, the skeptics here are going to see like, oh, I can't use Migrate Guru. Well, obviously they're trying to lock you in, but that is not true at all. There is built-in export functionality inside of Elementor Cloud, so you can go ahead and move your site to whatever hosting provider you like in the future. You just can't use these third-party plugins that could cause a lot of resource usage on the server. And the last type of plugins you have to stay away from are the ones that create basically security flaws, like WP File Manager, where you can have a file browser right inside of your WordPress admin panel. That's almost never a good idea, and I don't recommend that anyone do it. So to kind of finish up this section of the video for the skeptics out there, the people that are wondering really what's different about this from other hosting options, you might want to look at the FAQ right here, which says, can I safely leave out any security, backup, or optimization plugin? So basically what they say here is, we'll start at the bottom, there is no need for additional backup plugins. They provide daily backups. So extra backup plugins are not encouraged on Elementor Cloud. When it comes to security, yes, if you have a security plugin you want to run, it's going to be allowed with Elementor Cloud. I am partial to Patchstack, so I'll be installing that in this video, and we'll see how it does if there's any conflicts that arise. Now, when it comes to optimization, something that obviously is important to a website so that it runs smoothly, they say that you don't need to install any plugin that helps optimization through caching. So caching plugins not necessary, but things like image optimization, maybe ShortPixel is one that comes to mind here. Those types of plugins are definitely encouraged. So let's go ahead and get signed up here. As you can see, it is $100 a year with a 30-day money-back guarantee that gives you the Google Cloud hosting as well as all Elementor Pro features. So that is important to note because if you don't already have an Elementor subscription, it's usually $49 for a single website. Now, there are bundles where if you're building multiple sites, the price per site comes down. But if you're a normal entrepreneur building one site for your business, this is a heck of a deal. Let's go ahead and click the Buy Now button. All right, so let's go ahead and get signed up here. As you can see, it's just a regular old WooCommerce checkout page, no doubt built with Elementor. I'm gonna go ahead and sign up for my account and I'll see you in a second. All right, my order is complete. I've got a button right here to start creating my website. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. All right, we've got a little 4-step process here. I'm in the first step. It's asking what my website's name is. I'm gonna go ahead and type in my name, Dave Swift, as I'm gonna be building out daveswift.com. And you can see here, it's giving me an Elementor Cloud subdomain, which is basically, if I don't have my own personal domain that I wanna connect up later, I can use the Elementor Cloud subdomain instead. I'm gonna go ahead and hit next here. Step 3 is asking me what kind of website I'm creating. I'm gonna choose a blog and go to next. Now in step 4, I get to choose one of their website kits so that I have a starting point to build out my website. Now, even if you're the type of person that doesn't like to use templates, I highly recommend choosing a website kit rather than starting from scratch. You can see that that is an option down here in the lower right-hand corner, but the benefit of starting with a website kit is that every page that you need to build a WordPress website will be pre-populated for you. I'm going to show you how to use Elementor's site settings to create global fonts and global colors that'll make your website look like you immediately. So I highly recommend choosing one of these templates. I actually like to go with the wireframe. The wireframe doesn't include any design elements, so it is really, really easy to customize. You might want to preview it first, right? So we can say what's inside and we'll get a little preview of what the website looks like. Now, this is kind of boring, probably not the best for a tutorial video because it's all these blank images. We've got a little pop-up here that came out from the side with a subscription box. And it's kind of just really vanilla. And that's exactly what I want from a template, is keeping it, just the layout is provided here from the wireframe, but we're not getting any real design information. No colors, no fonts are selected for me. I'll be able to set that up on my own. Now, just because this is a YouTube video, you might want to see what some of the other ones look like. So I'll just show you, if we have a sports blog, we can go ahead and preview this. And obviously here, it's going to be a lot more interesting, a lot more, commercial looking, because we've got all of the great photography already pulled in with nice typography. Let's browse around a little bit more here to show you some of the things that are possible. This is a merchandise shop. I can scroll through here, obviously have the mobile responsive options to see what it would look like on a phone. I can build out my own store using Elementor Cloud if I wanted to. But once again, I'm gonna go back and just choose the wireframe kit. All right, I'm gonna choose start with this kit. Down in the corner here, it says it's gonna take a second. All right, I'm gonna speed things up here as this loads in the background. In actual time, this took me about 3.5 minutes to go from the start of the setup sequence all the way till when the site was able to be edited. I wanna compliment the Elementor design team. The little loading animations are very whimsical and make the entire sequence go by pretty quickly. And here we are, it says, ta-da, your site is ready. Check your email for details about signing in. And I'm gonna click this button that says, let's go. So here I am inside of my Elementor account. I'm in the Websites tab, and I'm viewing just sites that are hosted by Elementor. It is very easy to see sites that are hosted elsewhere as well. We've got a little selector here for that, and I can go ahead and intermingle them all with this All tab. But for now, I just want to work on the site we're creating, obviously, and I can see a bunch of information just when I hover over this little card. The site name is Dave Swift, and Site Lock is currently on. Clicking this tooltip, I can see that Site Lock blocks the site from search engines, and it also prevents anyone from accessing the site that doesn't have the PIN code that is needed to visit. Now, the first thing that I want to do is actually connect my custom domain. So I'm going to click on Manage this website. So now I'm taken to a page that allows me to manage my domains. What I want to do is click this little button right down here, which is going to give me the IP address of my server. I'm going to click this button to copy it to my clipboard, and then I'm going to jump over to my DNS provider. For you, that might be something like GoDaddy or Namecheap. I happen to be using Cloudflare at this point for the domain in question. I'm going to log in here and create my DNS record so that the custom domain forwards over to the Google Cloud hosting. So here I am inside of Cloudflare for my daveswift.com domain, and I'm just going to go ahead and edit this A record that I already have right here. If you don't have one, you can add a new record, but this one is pointing to my old host, so I'm just going to select the previous IP address, paste in the new one, and go ahead and hit save. All right, great. Now I also like to send the www domain over to the primary domain. So I've got this CNAME record added here. I'd recommend that you set both of these up. So you've got www forwarding to your primary domain as a CNAME record. And then as an ANAME record, you're just going to send the primary domain right over to the IP address that the Elementor Cloud website gave you. There's a quick technical aside I want to point out before we get back into Elementor Cloud. Because I'm using Cloudflare for my DNS management, and Elementor Cloud is also using Cloudflare as the CDN, I don't want to end up in a situation where I have two caches of my site. So what I'm actually going to do here before I move on is turn off caching or the proxy status inside of Cloudflare. So I'll just hit the edit button here and turn off proxying, save this, and then go into the CNAME record as well and turn that off as well. So this will ensure that I don't have a double cache situation. If you have any other caching going on with your Elementor Cloud website, I highly recommend just letting Elementor Cloud handle that. It'll make your life a lot easier. All right, back over to Elementor. I'm going to hit the next button here, and it's asking me what my custom domain name is. I'm going to type that in here and go ahead and click on connect my domain. And it says they are connecting daveswift.com. Over the next 48 hours, they will check to see if the DNS records are updated, and the site will get an SSL certificate, and they should email me when this is done. Now, they want to point out that site lock is still on, so we will make sure we change this before we try to go live. So a few moments have passed and my custom domain is now properly configured. You can see that daveswift.com now has an SSL certificate and it is configured as the primary domain. Now, if we want to go ahead and check out this site, the most obvious thing to do would be to type in daveswift.com and it's going to show me this site lock feature. Now, once again, this is to prevent people from seeing the site before you're ready. So if you're in development, site lock can be turned on and then your site will be kept private. If you want to view your site, you can go into your Elementor account and then scroll down here to where it says site lock. I'll be able to grab the pin code either by clicking the eyeball, which reveals the pin code, or I can simply just copy it to the clipboard here and go ahead and paste it into the window. Now, this will reveal the wireframe that we chose as a WebKit. Now, if you're not familiar with that term wireframe, it's really the idea of separating out the design from the layout. So with the wireframe, we're just looking at the layout here. We've got, some blog posts at the top, a little opt-in bar, some more posts, and then here is our little opt-in bar that pops up as we scroll down the page. And then we've got a footer down here at the bottom. So I'll be filling this in using Elementor as I'm accustomed to, even when I'm not using Elementor Cloud. It's still going to function identically. And so you'll see me working here. I'll kind of speed up the workflow and interrupt as I want to point out important moments in the development process. So to begin here, I've got two options. I can either edit with Elementor, which is going to open up the homepage inside the Elementor editor, or I can go ahead and open up the WP dashboard, which is what I'm going to do here so that I can get a nice familiar view of WordPress. We can see everything that we're working on is just the standard WordPress experience. Now, you might have noticed it was a little slow to load in that very first time. That's simply because I didn't actually go to the login screen. Elementor has a nice little auto-linking connection between your Elementor account and the sites you host with them, so you don't need to worry about a username and password. Now, of course, you can still use a username and password if you choose not to go through your Elementor account, but it's nice having these little buttons here, just one less thing to worry about. But just to be clear, the user section is still here, still functions just like you'd expect inside of WordPress. The first thing that I like to do with Elementor sites is go ahead and set up my site settings. So I'm going to go over to any page on my site, click up here. Actually, I don't even have to click, just hover up here where it says Edit with Elementor, and I'm going to go down to Site Settings. This is going to spring open a window that looks very much like Elementor if you've seen that before, where dragging and dropping widgets. But here, I'm actually going to configure the global style for the entire site. So I'm going to go do that right now, and we'll check back in a second. I am done editing my global colors here, and I went ahead and eliminated a lot of the colors that the WebKit pulled in. I like to keep my designs a lot more simple because I'm not a great designer, so I find having too many colors available to me tends to clutter my design. I use this principle known as the 60-30-10 principle, which allows me to have 60% of the colors be neutral. Here I'm just using plain white. 30% are going to be my brand color. I'm choosing purple right now. And I've got an accent color that I'm using only 10% of the time. And I'm using kind of a gold yellow color here. I'm from Minnesota. You might notice that these are the colors of the Minnesota Vikings, as well as our most famous musical hero, which is Prince. Scrolling through the page, you can see that all of the elements that are affected have been updated. This text before was kind of a bluish color. The blog headline I kind of kept the same, but everything else has been automatically updated. If something doesn't look right, like maybe this text is a little bit faint, I'm not too worried about it because I can always go into the individual elements later on and customize them for a case-by-case scenario. Maybe I'd like this text on purple to be white. Well, I can definitely do that. But for now, I like to keep my color palette simple. So let's go ahead and hit the update button. All right, let's go back out to the site settings. Next, I'm going to work on my global fonts. I take a very similar approach with fonts. I want a very simple layout here, maybe using one or possibly two different fonts for the entire site. Here I've got a lot of options, so I'm going to go through and clean this up. All of the Google fonts are available to me automatically in Elementor, so I'm going to go ahead and set this to be Railway and use that as my primary font throughout the website. So I'm going through and deleting most of the custom fonts here that have been added in. I, again, just want to keep things nice and simple because it makes my designs look a little more cohesive. If you're a skilled designer, maybe you want to have a lot of different fonts, but I want to have things nice and streamlined. So you can see here, I've got 4 different font options. I've got a primary headline, which is going to be what you see right here. We've got a secondary headline, which is the same font. If we compare these, we can see that this is Railway, 65 points, which might be a little bit big, and 700 weight. So that's the thickness, right? If I change this, you can see it get thicker. Now I've got a secondary headline right here, which is the same font, just a little bit smaller and a smaller weight as well. So it'll be a thinner line. So thinking about maybe this being the first headline on a page, and then any subsequent headlines could be this secondary headline. We've also got body text and button text. So here we're going to set this up to be Railway, 16 points and a 400 weight. And then the button text is currently set to be the same thing, but I like to keep this as a standalone template so that if I decide later I want that button text to change. In fact, you know what I'm going to do right now is make that a lot more bold so it stands out on that yellow background. And instead of capitalizing it, I'm going to make it all uppercase. There we go. That looks a lot better to me. Now you might be wondering, how did I link up this button text global font to the buttons? Well, it was set up by default to be connected. So there was a type called accent text. I just relabeled it button text. And later on, I will show you how to connect this up inside of the global stylings for buttons. Now, this is not going to be a full Elementor tutorial. Otherwise, this video would be about 9 hours long. I just want to point out some of the major things that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about online for getting started with Elementor, so you really can be set up to succeed from the beginning. All right, we're going to update here. I always like to update before I go out of this panel. It just tends to keep things in line a little bit more so that as I'm editing other typography options here, they're pulling in the more accurate titles that I've given things and the latest settings. All right, so now that I'm done with my global colors and my global fonts, the next thing I need to do is configure my theme style. Now, this might seem redundant and a little bit confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it to you here. Now, when I click into the typography setting, you're going to see that there's HTML elements, H1, H2, H3. This is where I can actually link up my global colors and my global fonts with each individual element that you'll be using throughout your website. So for a color for H1, let's say I want that to be my primary headline color, but maybe every H2 I want to be my brand color. Well, I can configure this right here, and that way I can have a nice cohesive design throughout my site. I don't have to go into the settings of each individual element while I'm working on them. Now, one thing you might notice is that things are not updating here as I work, and that's because I have one additional setting I need to take care of on the settings page. I need to go into the settings page and then disable default colors and fonts. So let's click this little link here. It'll take me into the settings page and I can find disable default colors, disable default fonts. I'm going to turn those on, and now all of my global settings will apply. So let's jump back over to our site settings. I'll do some more configuring and then we'll get into the design of the site. By the way, another way to get into the site settings is anytime you're editing a page with Elementor, you can click on the triple lines at the top here and then go right here to site settings. So first I'll go through my typography, link up all my colors and fonts, and then we'll see what that looks like. All right, there we go. I linked up the typography with my global fonts and colors. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing with buttons. So here's a button down here for typography. I'm gonna go ahead and choose my button text. For text color, I'm going to choose the neutral color. For color, I'm going to choose my accent color here. And then let's go ahead and choose our border type to none. So our buttons are looking good there. Let's go ahead and update the hover color. So as I move the mouse over the buttons, they will update a little bit here. I'm going to choose the text color to be the primary headline color for hovering. And then let's make the background color the neutral color. And I will do a border for this. We'll choose solid border, 1 pixel in width. And let's choose the accent color as our hover. So now as I go over, I have a nice little outline of the button with a gold background. All right, I like how that looks. Let's move on. All right, so that's everything I want to cover inside of the site settings right now. Of course, I can always come back as my design progresses, and any changes that I make will affect the entire site globally, as long as I'm using those HTML elements like H1 or body text, things like that. All right, so let's jump out of the site settings and actually begin designing our site for the first time. I want to start out with this header section, right? Because this is kind of an eyesore right now. We've got an image here that is not selected yet. So let's go ahead and edit the header. Now, in terms of site logo, I don't have one for my personal brand yet. Maybe that's something I'll add in the future, but right now I really don't need this image. So what I'm actually going to do is just get rid of the image, and I'm going to go ahead and put the site title in its place. All right, so there we go. Here is my site title. If I wanted to change this, I can of course click over here to the site identity. That will actually link me back over to my site settings, where I can change it right here. And I can also change the site description. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have a site logo, but I can upload a site favicon. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I've just dragged and dropped an image of myself. I'm going to go ahead and insert that. And this will actually be, this photo of myself will become the favicon for the site. I'm going to hit update, and it'll actually show up inside of the little icon right up here as we reload the page. All right, there we go. The favicon is now showing up next to the tab when I view the site. All right, let's get back to editing here. I've got a lot of work to do, so I'll check back with you in a second. So I've just begun editing some copy here. I'm going to go ahead and exit to the dashboard because I want to turn on one of the Elementor experimental features that I'm really enjoying lately, and that is the ability to use Flexbox. So what I'm going to do here is go under Elementor, go over to Settings, and then I have the options to go to Experiments. And if I scroll down here a little bit, I'm going to see the option to enable Flexbox. Here it is, Flexbox container. It is off by default, so I'm going to turn this on, and let's go ahead and save our changes. So heading back to edit our homepage, I'm now going to have a new option to allow us to use the container model versus the old section model. So you can see here, I've got the section selected. I'm going to convert this. It just duplicates it and puts it into the new Flexbox model, which I really enjoy laying things out with Flexbox. It tends to just make layout a lot easier. All right, back to editing. I'll jump in when there's something else important that I want to point out. All right, so I decided I didn't like the hover action of the button. I'm just gonna go ahead and make this a little bit of a lighter color. So when I hover, the button just lights up a little bit. There we go, we can see that. Might be a little too much. And now that I have that the way I want it, I'm gonna hit create new global color, and I'll just call this CTA hover. All right, now if I need to use that anywhere else, say links or anything like that, I want to kind of light up a little bit when someone goes over it, I have that color saved. All right, let's hit update here. You can see my hero section of my homepage coming together, looking pretty nice. I'm happy with this. Really just uploaded an image, added some copy here, and keeping it nice and simple. Now, before I move on, I'm just gonna check the mobile responsiveness of this, see what it looks like as I switch over to tablet and desktop mode. So I'm gonna click on this little button right here, go over to tablet, and you can see, oh, I've got some issues I've got to attend to. So we'll get to that here, and let's see what it looks like in mobile view. Definitely some issues here, so let me fix those quick.
steps ahead, cause I'm not working while you trying to catch a snooze. Keep it smooth. Not concerned with other dudes and what they do. Keep it true, I kick the truth. I'm not in so I can lose.
All right, so just a couple of quick tweaks and my mobile responsive is looking pretty good here. So the next thing I'm gonna do is actually work on this section right here. Let's go back to desktop view here. And you're gonna see all of these blank placeholders. Now, what this actually is just a bunch of blank posts that Elementor has loaded in with the wireframe. So what I need to do is go ahead and update these posts and they will automatically or dynamically populate with the correct information here, being the featured image, the title of the post, and then the excerpt that is loaded into the actual blog post in WordPress. So let's jump out of the Elementor editor here and work on that. Now you can see there are quite a few posts loaded in here from Elementor's WebKit import. I'm gonna go ahead and delete most of these. I'll just select them all, maybe unselect the top 3 and then move to the trash. So I just have 3 posts to work with. There's of course also the default post from WordPress. I'm gonna remove that one as well. All right, so obviously the content I'm creating for this video are not real blog posts. That would take a lot longer to go ahead and develop custom blog posts. So what I'm doing is just using some lorem ipsum. Actually, this was generated by Elementor. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add the things that are important to make it display correctly on the homepage of my website. So first being the featured image, I'm gonna go ahead and just upload kind of a generic WordPress featured image here. Drag and drop this in. All right, here we go. Here is my featured image that I just downloaded off of the stock photo website. I've gone ahead and added that right here. I'll also update this blog post to maybe have a couple more images. Let's just replace this. You can see I'm not using Elementor right now. I'm actually using Gutenberg, and then the page is going to be applied to the Elementor template when we view it later. So let's go ahead and upload an image, and we'll do the same thing over here. All right, now the last thing I need to do to this post is add an excerpt. All right, I just wrote a quick excerpt here. Let's go ahead and update the page. And if we go back to our website, we should see now this will populate and we'll actually have a popular post display. All right, here it is. This is looking pretty nice. You can see we just need to fill in our other 2 posts and our site's gonna start to look a lot more lively. All right, so taking a look at the homepage here, things are coming together in my opinion. I did work a little bit on the header here. That is looking really good. If you're not familiar with web development, the header is going to show up on every page unless I tell it not to. So I like how this is all spaced out. It is mobile responsive and working well there. Then we've got what we call the hero section, which has an image of myself. And then this background is actually generated, right inside of Elementor. I didn't do that inside of Photoshop. So I think that's pretty cool that I can do that. I've got a big button here that links off to another page that I have not developed yet, but if I wanted to solicit customers, I could click right here. As we scroll down, our posts are now displaying dynamically, so we can see the most popular posts at the top. And then if we go a little bit further past this opt-in box for our newsletter, we can see all of the recent posts. Now back to this opt-in box for a second. It is very simple to connect this up to MailChimp or ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, whatever email provider you're using. Chances are there's already a native integration with Elementor, and that is really cool. I'm not going to go into the details of that in this video just for the sake of time. Now heading past the recent posts, we get into the footer here where we can see things start to break down. I haven't worked at all on the footer yet. We've got social media posts. This is all blank because I've not connected any accounts yet. We'll take a look at this, although I have to be honest, I'm not sure I want the social media post to be in my footer because that means they're going to show up on every single page of my website. Just like the header displays at the top of every page on your website, the footer displays on every page at the bottom of your website. And I don't know if I'm trying to get people to hire me, if I want them to necessarily get distracted and go off to social media posts. Then down below, we have kind of more of a traditional footer here, which is obviously needing a little bit of TLC. It's looking quite ugly and hard to read. So I'm going to spruce that up next. But before I do that, I just want to show you what the posts actually look like, because I've showed you that they populate on the homepage dynamically. But if I click on them, now they are actually taking advantage of the WebKit that I imported, which had a single post template in it. So we saw when I was editing the post initially that it's just kind of in a Gutenberg type of editor. And here is what it looks like when it is actually displayed inside of Elementor. Now there's some weird things going on here with the icons. I can go in and fix this. To do that, I'm going to edit with Elementor, but rather than opening up the actual post itself, I'm opening up the single post template. Now, once again, I'm really happy with how this looks right out of the box, because I just imported the template from Elementor and then set up my global styles, and everything is looking how I want it to, with the exception being the share the post icons, which have kind of a red background. So what I'm going to do is actually go under style here and then go under my primary color and just make this maybe neutral. I could do that. Or maybe the smarter thing to do would just be to make it transparent. So if in the future I ever decide to change my background color, or maybe I use a plugin to switch into dark mode, this will all look nice. But other than that, everything you see, like the date, the username, and even related posts, is being pulled in dynamically via this template that Elementor imported for me. And of course, it's taking on all of my font and styling settings that I set up at the beginning of this video. Now, one thing I don't like is that my username is displaying here rather than the actual author name. So I can change that very easily. And that's actually a WordPress setting. I'm going to go ahead and do that, just show you folks how it is done. Let's hit update here. Then I'm going to exit to the dashboard, go under users, and I'm going to edit my user account. I can add my first name, my last name, change my nickname, and display my name publicly as Dave Swift. All right, let's update this profile. Now, as I go back to my site and I click on one of my blog posts, now if I refresh, it should display as Dave Swift. There we go. That looks much better. All right, great. I like how these blog posts are looking. Next thing I have to do is work on my footer. I'm going to go up to edit with Elementor, go to the footer, and I can begin editing right away. As I mentioned before, I'm not crazy about the idea of having my social media posts in the footer, so I'm just going to delete this section. And let's go ahead and make this bottom section look a little bit nicer. This is more of a traditional footer. Now I'm going to go ahead and convert this to a container. And as I do that, I notice I've got quite a bit of styling issues. Typically, these convert pretty smoothly. This is, again, moving to the new Flexbox model. This is an alpha feature, so I don't actually recommend that everyone jump on the Flexbox bandwagon quite yet. But I want to point out another important feature inside of Elementor, which is their navigator. So when I switched this over into the Flexbox model, I lost the site icon, right? Or the site image, which obviously I don't have one for this site. So I need to get rid of it. Everything is looking pretty funky over here, but I can't even see it. I can click right here and, I can see that I'm now editing the image box, but really it's hard to tell what's going on in this layout. So I'm going to right click and go down to Navigator. This pops open a window on the right-hand sidebar, and it's going to show me everything inside of this footer. Now there are some power user moves here where we can actually have this displayed at all times and we can pull it up with a key command. For now, I'm just going to keep it nice and simple and say, oh, here's my image box, and below that are my social icons. I don't want this image box. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. All right, now I've just got social icons over here, and I can go ahead and finish up editing the rest of my footer. So in summary, the navigator makes it very easy to see visually what's going on inside of your page. I think it's one of the best features in Elementor. All right, so I am just about done designing this homepage. I think it is looking pretty good. And you know what? This is going to basically wrap up the design section of this video. I just wanted to show you how Elementor works. We're not going to go through and build every single page on this site, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the structure. I want to point out the footer here. That's what I worked on last. I've got the nice white contrasting with the purple background. I think this is a nice looking footer section, and we got the email opt-in here. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about how Elementor lays out all of the different parts of the website, because that's something I mentioned as we were importing our kit at the beginning. We go into the theme builder here. Just let me show you how I got there. So we're inside of WordPress, go to the dashboard, and if you go under Elementor or templates, you can find the theme builder. This will pop you open into a page that shows you all of the different elements inside of your website. Now, you can kind of thumb through the different headers and footers. You can have multiple headers and footers, can be assigned to particular parts of your website. But if you were to just launch up a Elementor build from scratch without using any WebKit, all of these pages will be blank and you'll need to fill them in. Otherwise, your site will be incomplete. It'll say this right here, right? So single page, no templates found. You'll need to create one in order to have a header, a footer, a single post. The single post is what all of your blog posts look like. We talked about that already. Then the archive page, this is a page, if we go, let's say, to the home page here, the archive page is the blog page. All right, so we're gonna see all of our posts. It looks very similar to the homepage right now, but that's because we don't have very many posts. If we had a lot of posts, we might have page after page after page of blog posts displayed here in my overall archive page. So it's an important page to have on your website. You can see I have not designed this one yet, but it wouldn't take me very long to edit with Elementor, change all of the backgrounds just to be a little bit more cohesive with the design elements I've got going on my site. And the last section we get here is an error 404 page, which happens if you try to go to a URL that does not exist. So let's say I go to daveswift.com/tacos. It's going to show me that 404 page. Again, you won't have this if you don't import a WebKit. So that is one of the benefits of using that with the Hello theme, grabbing a WebKit. It is a really nice way to work through WordPress. And notice here that I have not edited this 404 page, but it looks really on brand, right? Because it took in my global styling. We got the purple background and the gold call to action color. One of the best parts about using Elementor Pro, in my opinion, is the form feature. It's very customizable and just really easy to get going. Now, one thing you might want to take into account when switching over to Elementor Cloud that we have not talked about is sending emails. So right now I've got this form all set up to go ahead and send me an email at my default address. If I edit this page with Elementor, we can inspect that and see where the emails are going to. But we have a little bit more configuration to do, in my opinion, to make sure that everything is hitting the inbox. So here we go. This is our form. And if I go to actions after submit, I can see that it's set to collect the submissions so they'll be stored on my server, which is great. But I also want to receive an email copy. Now, the email right down here is set to go to my email address, dave@clientamp.com. But one thing to take into consideration is that I've not configured any sort of email sending right from the server. Elementor Cloud actually recommends installing the WP Mail SMTP plugin. Now, there's certainly other SMTP plugins that are likely to work, but this is the one that Elementor Cloud has tested and recommends. So what is basically going to happen here is more deliverability will be coming through. Instead of having your emails show up as from your elementor.cloud account, it'll actually come from your own domain, which is I definitely wouldn't use it any other way than configuring a plugin. So highly recommend that. You should know that if you don't configure a plugin, you are going to be limited to 100 emails per day sent from your website. If you configure a plugin, you'll be using an outside third-party provider, and I actually have several videos on different ways to do that. So I'll link to those down below. They should work just fine with an Elementor Cloud website. So make sure that you go ahead and get that set up, and you'll be paying your outside provider. It's typically very, very affordable to do so. We're talking pennies per day, but definitely something worth getting taken care of. The last thing you need to check out is they ask, where is my email hosted? Well, Elementor Cloud does not provide a regular work email. For that, you're definitely going to want to go with something like Google Workspace or Office 365, as they recommend there. Those are both very, very high quality email providers. And I always recommend not skimping on your email sending for your business account. You want to be able to hit that inbox. There's nothing more embarrassing than having your email go to a spam box. People say, hey, I didn't receive that. And you have to tell them to pull it out of the spam. One other nice feature I want to point out here that I didn't mention thus far is that we've got a little chat widget living in the lower right-hand corner as we're editing pages. Now this goes away when I visit my website, right? We don't see that here, but when we're editing a page with Elementor, we see a little widget in the lower right-hand corner. And what this actually is Elementor's support team. You now have that right inside of your editor so that you can engage with their support and have live chat right as you're working on your Elementor page. I think this is a really great feature, something that is sure to be helpful to people, both experienced Elementor users, but certainly people who are just getting going with the platform. We've got a few more optimization things that I want to do here. I mentioned that I want to install a security plugin. So the one that I like to use is called Patchstack. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. It's just, I really like the offering that they provide. So I can go ahead and install this, log into my account, and it'll work just fine in the Elementor Cloud platform. It's not banning this plugin at all, and it allows me to install, activate, and I would just have to log in and I'd be good to go here. Nice and secure website. All right, so I went ahead, activated the site with Patchstack. It is now protected using Patchstack, and I've got all of the benefits of Elementor Cloud paired with my favorite security plugin, and I don't need to worry about anyone hacking into my site. The next thing I want to do is add an image optimization plugin. I've just been adding photos directly from a stock photo library. They're not optimized at all. So I'm going to go ahead and install ShortPixel, which happens to be my favorite image optimization plugin. I do have an affiliate link for ShortPixel. I'll show you down below. All right, so I entered my API key from ShortPixel. I'm going to go ahead and run a bulk optimization, and it's going to make all of the images on my site a little bit smaller and a little bit faster to load. Let's start the bulk optimization. All right, this is now running in the background. I do have to keep this tab open, but I can continue working in other tabs as it goes through and optimizes my images. Now, as we're sitting here staring at the optimization, I do want to point out there's a few visual differences that you might notice. First of all, this site lock mode is on. This is a nice blue icon indicating that site lock is on. This is really important because you might forget, you might not log into Elementor Cloud's website again. You might forget that site lock is left on. And once again, if it's on, no one can access your website. So I like that they made this front and center very clear, and it's super easy to turn the site lock off. So I'm just going to jump back over to my domain here, and I can go right down to site lock and just toggle it off, unlock the site, and now it is live. Anyone can see it. Another thing that stands out is under dashboard, we have the activity log that is installed by default from Elementor Cloud. This is a third-party plugin. You can download it on anyone's website. There's nothing particularly special about it, but I do want to point out that it is installed for you. So from the very beginning, you'll have a log of everything that's happened on your website. Really handy to have installed. And that way, if you have many people coming and going, you can see who did what on your site. So as an example, as the administrator here, I just activated the ShortPixel image optimizer. If you have this installed and a plugin goes missing or becomes deactivated, well, you'll have some evidence of what actually happened and who to point fingers at if it comes down to that. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that backups are taken care of for you. Well, over in the Elementor account, your Elementor account, if you go to under the hood, you're going to see the backup section where at any point I can click this button to create a new backup and say, ShortPixel optimization. Maybe I want to do this before I optimize. And I can see now that I've got the site is backing up currently, although I do have the automated backups from when I initially launched my account, which was yesterday as of the recording of this video. All right, there we go. My ShortPixel backup is complete. So if I needed to restore, I could definitely do that. Or if I wanted to download the entire site, I could export it right here. One thing that really stands out with Elementor Cloud is the simplicity. There's no options for, say, PHP memory size or number of PHP workers that are available. This is all taken care of for you via Elementor Cloud's setting. They take care of the server management for you. And we've got only a few options here for debugging and troubleshooting. It does have a really nice feature that I want to point out. If we go back out to our website here, if I wanted to, say, give Elementor access to my website, I could create them a temporary account inside of WordPress, and then I can share it with them very securely by simply clicking on the triple dots and then sharing my temporary credentials right here. I would simply enter the username and password that I created, and then I'd be able to send it directly to support. If you don't know how to create credentials, they do have a little guide right here where you can click and it'll show you step by step where to go and how to set that up so that they can go into your website and actually edit it if they need to or tweak some settings from their side. So while I wait for ShortPixel to do its optimization magic, I thought I would go ahead and install an SEO plugin because SEO is very important for any website. And I also want to point out the fact that you can use any SEO plugin you want. They mentioned Yoast on the Elementor Cloud sites. You might think, oh, I have to use Yoast. But no, that's not true. Just like we can use any image optimization plugin or really any plugin that you want that is compatible with WordPress is probably going to work inside of Elementor Cloud. I got SEOPress, the free version, installed here. I do have a link for the pro version down in the description if you want to check that out. But let's go ahead and just run the setup here. I just want to show you that it does in fact work. All right, ShortPixel has finished processing, and now it's time to get down to the heart of the matter, which is how does this Elementor Cloud website perform when it comes to speed? Well, I've got the images optimized, and other than that, I've done literally nothing to make the site load quickly. Let's go ahead and just reload the page here. You can see, as an administrator logged in, everything is loading instantaneously. Let's go over to GT metrics. I've got the domain name typed in already, and let's run the test. All right, here we go. You can see that the scores are all green. We've got 90% performance, 90% structure, 1.5 seconds, largest contentful paint, total blocking time of 7 milliseconds, and then a cumulative layout shift of 0. So I would say this is fairly excellent. You're definitely not going to be dinged in terms of conversion rates or any sort of SEO problems from the hosting provided by Elementor Cloud. And really, that's what I'm looking for. I didn't want to spend any time optimizing this. I just wanted a nice, fast loading website, and I've got it. So there you have it. The website performs excellently. I was actually very, very much at home building with Elementor Cloud. It felt just like I was on any other WordPress hosting. I didn't feel like there was any kind of compromise in performance or any compromise in the things that I was allowed to do because I was on Elementor. Scrolling through the WordPress repository, when there was a plugin that was not allowed, I did actually see a little pop-up that showed, hey, this plugin is incompatible. So I just want to point that out here at the end that you don't have to guess. You can actually scroll through when you sign up for your account. You can check out and see which plugins are, it's going to be in that list, but it makes it very obvious when you're going through to download plugins, you're not having to refer back to the Elementor documentation. So overall, I'm very impressed with Elementor Cloud, and I can definitely see this solving the issue that WordPress has right now, which is it's just really hard to get started with a WordPress site unless you're someone like me who does this professionally day in and day out, building sites, optimizing sites. That's what I do. But not everybody wants to do that, right? Most people, that's why things like Squarespace and Wix are very popular because it's a single click, we get a nice template, and we're good to go. But obviously there's some downsides to using a software as a service like that as well. So we're not gonna get into that in this video, but just know that I think you're better off choosing a solution like Elementor Cloud rather than going with something like Wix or Squarespace, who very well might be running ads before this video, who knows? All right, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, make sure you check out the links down below, leave me a comment, leave me questions. I try to get back to everybody that I can. It's gonna do it. I'll see you in the next one.